You think you can't be manipulated? That's exactly what they want you to think. The FBI has spent decades perfecting psychological tricks that can crack anyone. And I mean anyone. These aren't party tricks or sales gimmicks. These are battle-tested techniques that have broken hardened criminals, extracted confessions from people who swore they'd never talk, and made the guilty sing like canaries. But here's what should really terrify you. These same tactics work on innocent people too. Your brain doesn't care if you're guilty. It responds the same way. So the real question is, how many times have these tricks already been used on you without you even noticing? 1. The choice paradox strategy. What if I told you that giving someone more options actually makes them less likely to choose anything at all? Sounds backwards, right? Welcome to the choice paradox, and the FBI weaponizes this like it's their favorite toy. Here's the deal. When FBI agents interrogate suspects, they don't ask open-ended questions like some amateur detective in a bad Netflix series. They don't say, "So what happened that night?" Because that gives the suspect's brain way too much room to craft an elaborate story, complete with plot holes they'll patch up as they go. Instead, agents limit everything to binary choices. Did you turn left or right? Was it before midnight or after? Simple, direct, suffocating. This technique is rooted in the famous jam study, where researchers found that shoppers presented with 24 jam varieties were less likely to buy than those presented with just 6. Too many choices create decision paralysis. Your brain literally short-circuits trying to process all the variables. Now, imagine you're sitting in an interrogation room, sleep-deprived, stressed, and suddenly you're being hit with these rapid-fire binary questions. Your mental energy drains faster than your phone battery at 2%. You don't have the cognitive resources to construct elaborate lies because you're too busy just picking A or B. And here's the beautiful, terrifying part. Each small choice you make creates a trail of commitment. You said left, so now you're locked into that direction. You said after midnight, so that timeline is set. The FBI agent is basically building a cage around you, one simple question at a time, until you've boxed yourself in so completely that the only way out is the truth. It's like playing chess against someone who's already seen every move you're going to make. Checkmate before you even realized you were playing. Subscribe now before the FBI uses these tricks to make you forget to click that button. 2. Strategic silence technique. Ah yes, the classic awkward silence, but make it weaponized. You've heard this one before. Silence is golden. Well, the FBI took that phrase and turned it into psychological warfare. Here's what happens in a typical FBI interrogation that would make most people absolutely lose their minds. The suspect answers a question. Maybe they give some half-baked explanation or a nervous, rambling response. And then, nothing. The FBI agent just sits there, staring, making eye contact, not blinking, not speaking, just existing in this void of horrible, uncomfortable nothingness for 30, 40, sometimes 60 seconds. Now, if you've ever been in an awkward silence, you know that even 5 seconds feels like an eternity. Your brain starts screaming at you to fill the void, to say literally anything to make it stop. It's hardwired into us. Humans are social creatures, and silence in conversation feels like social death. We interpret it as rejection, disapproval, or aggression. So what does the suspect do? They crack. They start talking again. Well, actually, there's one more thing. I guess I should mention, boom, that's it. That's the moment. The FBI agent didn't have to ask another question, didn't have to pressure or threaten. The suspect pressured themselves. They volunteered information they had no intention of sharing, all because their brain couldn't handle the silence. It's like watching someone hand you the murder weapon in the confession letter because you simply refuse to speak. The person who can sit comfortably in silence controls the entire interaction. And let me tell you, FBI agents can sit in silence like it's their meditation practice. Meanwhile, you're over there word vomiting your deepest secrets like you're at confession. The silence didn't break you. You broke yourself. Beautiful, isn't it? 3. Mirroring and rapport building. You ever notice how you start talking like your friends? How you unconsciously copy someone's gestures when you're vibing with them? Congratulations, your mirror neurons are working exactly as the FBI wants them to. Mirroring is when someone subtly matches your body language, speech patterns, breathing rhythm, even your vocabulary choices. And when done right, it's basically a psychological hack that makes your brain think, hey, this person is like me, and people like me are safe. The FBI trains agents in sophisticated mirroring techniques that go way beyond just crossing your arms when someone else does. We're talking about matching the pace of someone's speech, adopting similar hand gestures, even breathing in sync. It sounds creepy when I say it out loud, and honestly, it kind of is. But here's the thing. It works ridiculously well. When someone mirrors you, your subconscious picks up on these similarities and floods your system with trust signals. Your brain basically says, similarity equals safety. And suddenly you're opening up to this FBI agent like they're your childhood best friend. You're revealing information, sharing details, cooperating in ways you absolutely would not if you consciously realized what was happening. It's like a psychological Trojan horse. The agent isn't forcing their way into your trust. You're inviting them in because your own brain is telling you they're one of the good guys. And the most insane part? Even if you know about mirroring, it still works. Your conscious knowledge doesn't override the subconscious response. It's like knowing a magic trick, but still being amazed when you see it. The FBI agents become chameleons, adapting to whoever they're talking to, and before you know it, you're trauma dumping to a federal agent like they're your therapist. Wild. 4. The Ben Franklin effect. What if I told you that the best way to make someone like you isn't to do them a favor, but to ask them for one? Yeah, that sounds completely backwards. But welcome to the Ben Franklin effect, named after the founding father who apparently had time to discover electricity and psychological manipulation. Here's the counterintuitive genius of this technique. When you do someone a favor, you might feel good about yourself, but they feel indebted, which can actually create resentment. But when someone does you a favor, their brain has to rationalize why they helped you. And the easiest explanation is, I must like this person, that's why I helped them. Cognitive dissonance for the win. FBI agents exploit this ruthlessly. Instead of offering suspects coffee or making them comfortable, they ask for small favors. Hey, could you grab me that file? Mind if we adjust the temperature in here? Can you clarify that detail for me one more time? These tiny requests seem insignificant, but each one is a psychological seed being planted. The suspect's brain starts thinking, wait, I'm helping this FBI agent. I'm cooperating with them. Why would I do that if they were my enemy? And just like that, the agent has flipped the script. The suspect has essentially convinced themselves that the agent isn't a threat. It's self-persuasion at its finest. You're not being manipulated by external force. You're manipulating yourself through your own actions. And the beauty is that it starts so small. One tiny favor, then another, then another. Before you know it, you've built this entire mental narrative where you and the FBI agent are basically collaborators. It's like watching someone build their own prison cell, one brick of cooperation at a time, all because their brain needed to justify why they passed someone a pen. Franklin would be proud or horrified, probably both. 5. Anchoring in negotiations. Yes. Anchoring, or as I like to call it, making everything else seem reasonable by starting with something absolutely insane. The FBI loves this one, especially hostage negotiators who need to make terrible options sound like Christmas morning. Here's how it works. The first number, idea, or proposal mentioned in any negotiation becomes the anchor point. It's the reference that everything else gets compared to. And whoever sets that anchor controls the entire conversation. Imagine you're a suspect, and the FBI agent leans across the table and says, "You're looking at life imprisonment, maybe even the death penalty, depending on how this goes." Your brain immediately locks onto those words. Life imprisonment, death penalty, those are now your anchors. And then, 20 minutes later, the same agent says, "But if you cooperate, if you tell us what we need to know, we might be able to talk about a reduced sentence, maybe 15 years with parole." And suddenly, 15 years sounds like a gift from the heavens. Your brain isn't processing 15 years in prison as the nightmare it actually is. It's processing it as way better than life imprisonment. which was the anchor. The FBI agent just made you grateful for over a decade behind bars. That's the power of anchoring. It doesn't even have to be about prison sentences. In any negotiation, whether it's with a hostage taker, a witness, or a suspect, the first extreme position shapes everything that follows. Start high, and everything after seems like a compromise. Start with the worst-case scenario, and suddenly, the bad options look appealing. It's like pricing a luxury car at $200,000 so that the $80,000 model seems like a steal. Same car, different frame. Your brain doesn't evaluate options in a vacuum. It evaluates them against the anchor. And the FBI makes damn sure they're the ones setting it. 6. Foot-in-the-door compliance. You ever agree to something small and then suddenly find yourself committed to something massive you never intended? Yeah, welcome to foot-in-the-door compliance, and the FBI has perfected it to an art form. Here's the psychology. Humans crave consistency. Once we commit to something, even something tiny, our brains hate contradicting that commitment. It feels wrong, like we're being hypocritical or unreliable. So we keep saying yes, even when the requests get bigger. FBI agents exploit this ruthlessly during interrogations. They don't start by asking for a confession. That would trigger every defense mechanism you have. Instead, they start with something completely non-threatening. You were in the area that day, correct? It's barely even a question. Of course you were in the area. You already admitted that. So you say yes. Then they build, and you knew the victim, right? Well, yes, you knew them. That's public knowledge. Another yes. You'd seen them earlier that week? Sure, why not? Yes, again. Each tiny agreement is like a step on a staircase. You don't even realize you're climbing because each step feels insignificant. But then, 10 questions later, you've agreed to so many small facts that denying the big one feels psychologically impossible. You've already confirmed you were there. You knew them, you had opportunity, you had means. Saying, "but I didn't do it," now feels like you're contradicting yourself. Your brain screams at you to stay consistent, and boom, you've basically talked yourself into a corner without the FBI agent ever being aggressive or accusatory. It's not about scaling a wall in one giant leap. It's about climbing stairs so gradually you don't realize you've reached the top until you're already there. By then, the door is closed behind you, and the only way forward is through admission. Absolutely diabolical. Hit subscribe or keep living in blissful ignorance. Your choice. They're watching either way. 7. Name repetition for connection. What if I told you that hearing your own name activates your brain differently than any other word in the human language? Sounds egotistical, but it's neuroscience. Baby. Your name is tied to your sense of identity, your self-concept, your very existence, and the FBI knows this. When FBI agents use your name during interrogation or negotiation, they're not just being polite, they're hacking your brain. Studies show that hearing your name triggers unique activation in brain regions associated with self-identity and attention. It's like someone pressing your personal pay attention button. You can't help it. Your brain perks up. You focus. You feel seen. And here's where it gets tactical. FBI agents use names strategically, not randomly. They drop your name right before a critical question. John, where were you that night? They use it to de-escalate tension. Sarah, I understand this is difficult. They use it to create micro-moments of personal connection. Michael, I need you to be honest with me. Each time they say your name, your brain registers it as personal recognition. It humanizes the interaction. It makes the agent feel less like an adversary and more like someone who sees you as an individual. And that slight shift in perception? That's all they need. You become more likely to cooperate, to open up, to trust. It's such a simple technique, but the psychological impact is massive. Compare it to an interrogation where the agent never uses your name, just refers to you as the suspect, or doesn't address you directly at all. That feels cold, impersonal, adversarial. You keep your guard up, but throw in some name repetition, and suddenly your defenses soften without you even realizing it. It's like the difference between someone saying, "Hey, move," versus, "Hey, Sarah, could you move?" One feels like a command, the other feels like a request between equals. Same outcome, completely different psychological experience, and the FBI milks this for everything it's worth. 8. Mere exposure principle. Ah yes, the mere exposure effect, or as I like to call it, becoming a psychological parasite through sheer persistence. Here's the deal, your brain is lazy. It uses shortcuts to decide what's safe and what's dangerous, and one of the biggest shortcuts is familiarity. If you've seen something or someone multiple times without anything bad happening, your brain files them under probably safe. The FBI exploits this in undercover operations and long-term investigations like absolute pros. Imagine you're a suspect or a target of investigation. An undercover FBI agent starts showing up in your life. Not dramatically, not suspiciously, just consistently. They're at the same coffee shop, they're at the gym, they're at community events. Your brain starts recognizing them as part of your environment. And here's the beautiful, terrifying trick. Familiarity breeds liking. The more you see someone without negative consequences, the more your brain decides they're trustworthy. It's why you start to like that annoying song after hearing it 50 times, or why you feel weird affection for your regular barista, even though you've never had a real conversation. The FBI agent becomes a familiar, non-threatening presence. Your defenses lower. You start treating them like a regular person in your life. Maybe you chat with them, maybe you share details you wouldn't share with a stranger. And all the while, they're gathering intelligence, building a case, getting closer to their objective. This isn't about one dramatic interaction where they sweep in and get everything they need. It's about consistency over time. It's about being a background character in your life until you forget they're even playing a role. By the time you realize what's happening, if you ever do, they've already collected months of information. It's psychological infiltration through repetition. Absolutely brilliant and completely unsettling. 9. Behavioral baseline establishment. You've heard this one 1,000 times in crime shows. They're exhibiting signs of deception. But here's what TV doesn't tell you. Those signs are meaningless unless you know what normal looks like for that specific person. Enter behavioral baseline establishment, and the FBI treats this like gospel. Before any serious interrogation begins, FBI agents engage suspects in casual, non-threatening conversation, weather, sports, hobbies, completely mundane stuff. And while the suspect thinks they're just making small talk, the agent is studying them like a scientist observing a lab rat. They're noting normal speech patterns. Do they talk fast or slow? Do they make eye contact or avoid it? Do they fidget or sit still? What does their breathing look like when relaxed? How do they construct sentences when discussing neutral topics? This is the baseline, the calibration standard for truth. Then, when the real questions start, the agent watches for deviations. If someone who normally makes steady eye contact suddenly can't look at you, that's significant. If someone who speaks fluidly starts stuttering and backtracking, that's a red flag. But here's the key. These behaviors only mean something in context. Some people naturally avoid eye contact. Some people always fidget. Without a baseline, you're just guessing. With a baseline, you're reading a map. The FBI turns this into a systematic process. They literally chart your normal behavior before introducing stress. It's like a scientist establishing control conditions before running an experiment. And once they have that baseline, every deviation becomes a data point. Every nervous laugh, every shifted posture, every change in vocal pitch gets compared against your established normal. You can't fake normal if they've already documented what your real normal looks like. It's like trying to cheat on a test when the teacher has your handwriting samples and knows exactly how you write when you're not stressed. Good luck with that. 10. The illusion of choice technique. What if I told you that some questions aren't really questions at all, but traps disguised as options? Welcome to the illusion of choice, and the FBI wields this like a psychological scalpel. Here's the setup. Instead of asking a direct yes or no question that triggers immediate defensiveness, FBI agents present questions that offer apparent choices but actually lead to the same conclusion. Did you plan this for weeks, or was it a spontaneous decision? Sounds like you have options, right? Plan ahead or act impulsively. Two different scenarios, except notice what both answers confirm. You did it. Either answer is an admission of involvement. There's no escape hatch. But because your brain is processing the choice between A and B, you don't immediately recognize that both options are incriminating. You feel like you're controlling the narrative by choosing your version of events. That psychological comfort, that sense of agency, lowers your resistance. It's infinitely less threatening than, "Did you commit this crime?" which triggers every defense mechanism you have and makes you immediately say no. The illusion of choice makes you feel like a participant in the conversation rather than a target. And that feeling is exactly what the FBI agent wants, because people are far more likely to answer questions when they feel they have some control over how they answer. It's like asking someone, "Do you want to confess now or after lunch?" as if those are the only two options and confessing is inevitable. Your brain gets so caught up in the false binary that it doesn't step back and say, "Wait, neither of these options serves my interest." By the time you realize the trap, you've already answered, and that answer is now on record. It's linguistic judo. Your own momentum gets used against you. 11. Time distortion and fatigue. Ah yes, the good old-fashioned wait until they're too exhausted to lie effectively strategy. Time distortion and mental fatigue are the FBI's version of grinding down an opponent in a boxing match. You don't need to knock them out in one punch, you just need to keep them in the ring until they can't defend themselves anymore. Here's the brutal psychology. Maintaining a lie requires significantly more cognitive resources than telling the truth. When you lie, your brain has to simultaneously remember the truth, construct the false narrative, keep the details consistent, monitor the listener's reactions, and suppress any behavioral tells. It's mentally exhausting. Now, imagine doing that for 4, 6, 8, 12 hours straight. FBI agents use extended interrogation sessions strategically. They keep you in that room, going over details again and again, asking the same questions from different angles, looping back to previous statements. And while you're getting progressively more tired, hungry, and mentally drained, the agents stay fresh through rotations. One agent leaves, another comes in. They've had coffee, bathroom breaks, meals. You haven't. Your cognitive resources deplete with every passing hour. Your ability to maintain that elaborate fabricated story weakens. Details start slipping. Contradictions appear. And here's the insidious part. Truth-telling requires far less mental energy than lying. So as you become more fatigued, the path of least resistance shifts. Your brain starts thinking, "You know what would be easier? Just telling them what actually happened." Suddenly, confession becomes the psychologically easier option. The FBI isn't torturing you, they're just waiting for your mental defenses to crumble under their own weight. It's like a siege. They don't need to break through the walls, they just need to wait until you're too exhausted to keep them standing. 12. Theme development and minimization. What if I told you that the easiest way to get someone to confess isn't to make them feel like a terrible person, but to give them a psychologically acceptable reason for being a terrible person? Welcome to Theme Development and Minimization, where the FBI basically becomes your therapist who also wants you to admit to federal crimes. Here's the technique. Instead of treating suspects as cold-blooded criminals, FBI agents develop sympathetic themes that minimize moral culpability. They create narratives that allow suspects to maintain some shred of self-image while still confessing. Anyone in your situation might have reacted the same way. The pressure you were under was enormous. You were provoked. You were desperate. You were protecting someone you loved. These themes provide face-saving exits. They allow the suspect to confess while framing themselves as a victim of circumstances rather than a villain. And psychologically, this is huge. Most people can't maintain cognitive dissonance between "I'm a good person" and "I committed this terrible act" without some kind of bridge. The theme provides that bridge. It gives them permission to admit what they did without completely destroying their self-concept. The FBI agent isn't saying "you're evil." They're saying "you're human, and humans make mistakes under pressure." That's infinitely easier to accept. Compare this to an interrogator who constantly reinforces how terrible the crime was and how guilty the suspect is. That creates defensiveness. The suspect digs in, refuses to cooperate, because cooperation feels like admitting they're fundamentally bad. But give them a theme, a narrative that preserves some dignity, and suddenly, confession becomes possible. "I didn't want to hurt anyone. I just panicked." Boom. That's a confession wrapped in a minimizing theme. The FBI got what they needed, and the suspect got to maintain some psychological comfort. Everybody wins. Well, except the suspect is still going to prison, but at least their ego is intact. 13. The assumptive close. Ah, yes, the assumptive close, or as I like to call it, treating your guilt as established fact and watching you scramble to keep up. Here's the technique. Instead of asking if something happened, FBI agents ask when, how, or why it happened. When did you first think about doing this? Notice what that question assumes? It assumes you did it. It skips right past denial and treats the act as confirmed. And here's the psychological genius. Denial now requires swimming upstream. The natural flow of the conversation has already moved past the question of guilt and into details. Saying, "I didn't do it," now feels like you're backtracking, interrupting, being difficult. It's psychologically easier to just follow the agent's lead and answer the question as framed. Before you realize it, you're discussing when and how, which implicitly confirms that you did. The assumptive language creates momentum that's incredibly hard to resist. How many times did you meet with them? Assumes multiple meetings. Why did you decide to go through with it? Assumes decision and action. Each question is a small assumption that if you follow the conversational flow, you're tacitly confirming. It's like being swept along by a current. Fighting against it requires active, conscious effort that most people, especially when stressed or fatigued, can't sustain. Compare this to, "Did you do this?" which is a binary question with a clear exit. No. But "when did you do this?" doesn't offer that same easy out. You have to actively stop the conversation, reject the premise, and redirect. Most people don't have the presence of mind or psychological strength to do that repeatedly, especially when the agent just keeps rolling forward with more assumptive questions. It's conversational bulldozing disguised as normal inquiry. Absolutely ruthless. 14. Strategic information revelation. What if I told you that the FBI doesn't need to know everything to make you think they know everything? Welcome to Strategic Information Revelation, where agents play poker with your confession. Here's the beautiful manipulation. FBI agents carefully control what information they reveal and when. They might know 3 specific details about your involvement in a crime, but instead of revealing all 3 at once, they reveal 1. Then they watch you squirm. Then, after you've constructed your explanation around that 1 detail, they reveal the 2nd detail, which contradicts your story. Now you're backtracking, adjusting, looking increasingly guilty. Your brain starts racing. What else do they know? If they know that, they must know everything. This is the evidence ploy, and it's devastatingly effective. By demonstrating knowledge of specific, accurate details, agents create the illusion of omniscience. You start thinking resistance is futile. They already have everything. Denying is just making me look worse. So you confess, even though the FBI actually only had those 3 pieces of information and needed your confession to complete the picture. They bluffed you with partial knowledge. Moreover, strategic revelation allows agents to catch you in lies. If you claim you weren't at a location and then they casually mention they have cell tower data placing you there, your credibility evaporates. Each lie they catch further breaks down your psychological defenses. You start thinking, "I can't keep up with what they know. I'm just digging myself deeper." It's like playing cards against someone who keeps revealing they have better hands than you thought. Eventually, you just want to fold. The FBI doesn't need a royal flush, they just need you to believe they have one. Your imagination does the rest of the work. 15. Building false security before strike. Ah yes, the classic lull them into comfort and then go for the throat technique. Building false security before the strike is the FBI's version of a predator stalking prey. Here's the long game. FBI agents may spend 30, 40, 60 minutes building rapport, establishing trust, creating a comfortable environment. They mirror your body language. They use your name. They develop sympathetic themes. They ask casual questions. You start relaxing. Your guard drops. You think, "Hey, this isn't so bad. This agent seems reasonable. We're just having a conversation." And that's exactly when they strike. Right when you're psychologically off balance, when your defenses are lowered, when you've been lulled into this false sense of security, the agent drops a direct, critical question. "So why did you kill him?" It's sudden. It's unexpected. It catches you completely off guard. And in that moment, before your defense mechanisms can fully engage, before you can construct your careful, rehearsed response, you often blurt out something truthful. An unrehearsed reaction. A genuine response. And that's what they were waiting for. The entire hour of building rapport was set up for this one moment. It's psychological setup and payoff. They invest time making you comfortable specifically so that when they need a truthful reaction, your brain isn't ready to lie. You've been conditioned to view this as a friendly conversation, not an adversarial interrogation. So when the hammer drops, you react honestly before your suspect mode can kick back in. It's like a boxer who spends 3 rounds feeling out their opponent, establishing a rhythm, making them comfortable with certain patterns, and then completely changing strategy in the fourth round with a knockout combination. By the time you realize you've been played, the damage is done. You've already revealed something critical. The false security wasn't kindness, it was strategy. Cold, calculated, devastatingly effective strategy. Subscribe so you can at least pretend you're prepared for when someone manipulates you next time. So there you have it, 15 psychological tricks the FBI uses to basically turn your brain against you. Feeling paranoid yet? You should be.